The gaming community has been on pins and needles after word got out that the Sony PlayStation 3 suffered a major data breach. Earlier this week, tech sites started reporting that Sony suffered an external intrusion, which forced their online network to shut down. And as details of that intrusion start to leak out, we've now learned the players' personal information was breached. And was breached massively. I'm talking user names, addresses, email addresses, birthdays, network passwords, and logins. And we should point out here, for the first few days that tech sites are reporting this unprecedented breach, Sony decided not to make any kind of public comment. It wasn't until days later when the tech giant decided to finally send a letter to each of their users to inform them of this major problem. And in their email, they stated, "We have discovered that between April 17th and April 19th, certain PlayStation Network and Curiosity Service user account information was compromised in connection with an illegal and unauthorized intrusion into our network." Now, the letter then went on to give users the bad news about what private information had been released to the public. We are happy to report at least one piece of good news for PS3 owners. Turns out that while the hackers do possess some personal information, your actual credit card data was encrypted, meaning that they cannot touch it. So while gamers breathe a slight sigh of relief there, I would like to take a moment to ask Sony where the hell their priorities lie. If you remember a few months ago, we told you about how Sony filed a lawsuit against George Hotz when he released a code online to show other gamers how to modify their console and even use pirated games on their system. Sony had absolutely no qualms about going after Hotz for his attack on their gaming system. They took him straight to court. So keeping all of that in mind, we can't help but wonder, why hasn't Sony taken more steps to protect their customers? They spend so much effort tracking down one guy who damaged their bottom line. Meanwhile, they leave their own database open to hackers who potentially have gained enough information to perform identity theft on 77 million users. So maybe Sony should redirect some of their vast resources to protecting the personal information of customers, the people who have made Sony what it is, rather than waging a legal battle against one lonely hacker, George Hotz. And several governments, such as Taiwan, Canada, the UK, and the US, seem to agree. They're currently pressing Sony for information on this very serious breach. But in the meantime, Sony is hanging its head in shame because, frankly, this kind of data breach is one of the biggest and one of the most embarrassing in gaming history. Oh, and by the way, Xbox fans are growing by the minute.